Welcome back to part 2 of my series, How to Be an Advocate Without Being a Jerk. Yeah, how to be an advocate without being a jerk. Have you ever known somebody who was so outspoken about something, and I mean something good, something, whether it's about the environment or women's rights or the plight of the homeless or feeding children. Have you ever known someone who was so outspoken that instead of drawing people into conversation and into the possibility of transformation on their opinions about such issues, their whole vibe, their attitude, their tone, it just drove people away? Have you known somebody like that? Have you been that person? I know there have been times when I have been that person, and it is so easy to become that person because when we are talking of issues of justice, we are addressing injustice, and that justifiably so, it makes us angry. And though anger can be a really good thing, it also can cause us to fall into a place where instead of drawing people in and getting people to listen and possibly change their minds, it simply turns people off. So what do we do about that? Well, one way I think we can address it is to keep in mind a verse that I bet you already know. So many of us know this verse, even those of us who don't have a lot of Bible verses committed to memory. One that is very familiar to a lot of us is Micah 6:8. And that is the one that says, "What does the Lord require of you? But to seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God." So anytime that we are out to seek justice, let's remember those other two things: love kindness and walk humbly. And let's really hone in on that walk humbly part. Let's imagine, as the scripture indicates to us, that justice and humility are not opposites, but they walk hand in hand. However you want to do that, hand in hand. They go together. Justice and humility go together. Because what happens when we work for justice without kindness or humility, that's when our advocacy just starts to look like arrogance. Like we have all the answers, we are the ones in the right, we are righteous, and anyone who doesn't agree with us is clearly in the wrong. You see how that's not helpful when we really are trying to seek justice. That whole thing, seeking justice, it goes with loving kindness and walking humbly. So one of the ways we can avoid this, and if you follow me at all, you know I love some good alliteration. So one of the ways we can avoid this is to listen before we lecture. When we are advocating for a position, when we are working for justice and we are talking with people, perhaps people who don't exactly know what they think about this, or people who already know and it is the opposite of what we believe, take the time to listen to where people are, to listen to where they are coming from before you start to lecture. We should always listen before we lecture. And I love alliteration because I always remember it better. Listen before I lecture. Listen before I lecture. I can remember that. And perhaps I will be able to remind myself to do that before I launch into some sort of self-righteous lecture about what other people should be doing and how other people should be believing. And here's how I think the whole kindness, seek justice, love kindness fits in. And just a reminder, kindness is different than being nice. Nice is usually a surface thing. Nice is being polite. And you can be nice without being kind at all. Kind involves a deeper feeling, a real sense of goodness towards a person, towards a situation. So kindness is something deeper than being nice. And we should remember to be kind in these situations, even when we are angry, even when we are offended by other people's points of view or their stances. And here's why. As Christians, when we advocate and we argue and we stand up for a position, when we are advocating for justice, trying to advocate without being arrogant, trying to listen before we lecture, we are also showing people who we believe God is, whether we realize it or not. If we are doing what we are doing because we are Christians, because of what we believe, if we act like angry, bitter, know-it-all bullies, people might start to believe that our God is an angry, bitter, know-it-all bully. And while we know better than that, if that's how we are out there acting in the name of God, do you see how people might start to think that? In fact, that has already happened. There are people out there who act hateful, who do harmful things, and they do it, they say, in the name of God and because they are Christian. And we see how that has turned away so many people from the church, from God, from faith. It has done so much damage in this world. And the last thing we want to do is to contribute to that kind of image of God being out there. So as you move through life in the coming days and weeks, and you are out there advocating for the least of these, for the marginalized, remember this verse. Take it with you. Chances are you already know it. What does the Lord require of you? But to seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly. Remember to embrace that humility, knowing that God is God and you are not, so that your advocacy doesn't look like arrogance. And before you lecture, remember to listen. Listen to what other people are saying, knowing that you don't know it all, and other people might have some things to say as well. And as you go, offer up the kind of kindness to others that you believe God would extend to them, knowing that you, in your efforts to work for justice, in your efforts to be advocates, are representing who God is, or at least who you believe God to be. And so maybe think about it like this. Justice without the kindness, without the humility, can just become a lot of noise. It can easily devolve into just a lot of noise, and people get tired of noise real quick. But if we follow the commandment of God as it appears to us in the book of Micah, when we seek justice while loving kindly and walking humbly, then that creates some harmony. That is more than noise. That can create the kind of music that people want to engage with, that people want to join in. Does that make sense? Is that a good thing to keep in your mind as you are walking through this world, trying to be a good advocate for justice? That when we leave the kindness and the humility behind, it just becomes noise, and that can turn people away really quickly. But if we can be advocates for justice while being kind and humble, that can create the kind of scenario, the kind of song that draws people in and makes them want to be a part of it. That's just another way that we can work towards being advocates without being jerks. If you'd like more tools and encouragement for your faith journey, like and follow here. And you can follow me at Doubting Believer on Instagram and Facebook, and at Free Range Pastor on TikTok.